Do I think the Bogaerts contract is a little loony? Absolutely. It's 8 years for a guy who will not be a shortstop after the next 3 seasons from now. He's gonna have to move to somewhere else on the infield or to a corner outfield spot. Should that matter to anybody? No. Who cares? It's not your money. That is one of the most important things I feel like MLB fans need to be reminded of over and over and over again. It is not your money. Don't worry about payroll. Stop caring so much about how much guys cost or what the payroll is going to look like in 5 years. It just doesn't matter, or it shouldn't matter to you. Demand better. Demand consistently better from the teams that you follow. Otherwise, you end up looking like the A's.
Yeah. Which is what nobody wants to be, is looking like the A's, Jon Tayler. The Braves, though, they traded for Sean Murphy.
The Braves.
Spoke about it. And it was a weird, huge trade. There was a good write-up by Michael Bauman on this particular trade that sent my man Contreras to Milwaukee. So it's Contreras up in here, Contreras up in there in the NL Central, with his brother going to replace Yadier Molina in St. Louis. It's a big trade. A lot of pitchers. Kyle Muller, the 6'7" legend, out of the building. He was going to be a 6 or 7 guy on this rotation, so he's gone. I think he ended up in Milwaukee in this 3-teamer, not Oakland. But Murphy is now going to be the everyday guy. You have Travis d'Arnaud, who this is it for him at the end of this year. And we'll see what his trade value is in the middle of the year. And maybe he's just that you try him as the permanent DH to start. And I don't know. I'm very curious to see what happens with this group. But I mean, they have 3 to 4 years with Sean Murphy as an everyday guy. He's one of the 3 best all-around shortstops in baseball, which is something that is exciting if you're a Braves fan, because I think the thing after a couple of days, because I was not happy with this trade when it first was announced, John, but one of the things I've thought about since, and it's that we talk about on this podcast a lot, the catching situation across Major League Baseball sucks. Most teams have a really crappy catcher situation. Look at the Marlins; they just cannot get that position figured out. You go up and down the list. Most teams just don't have an Adley Rutschman. It's just not really in the pipeline either. For the Braves now to just bring in Sean Murphy and not bet on the health of d'Arnaud mixed with the development of Contreras as an everyday catcher and what he would be defensively, I mean, I'm more okay, but there's part of me, it's just I've seen the bat, and Contreras was really good last year for a strong stretch, and I'm a big Contreras guy. I'm worried Bauman made this point where he's like, Murphy's the better player, and it's not particularly close right now. But there's still the star potential. He could absolutely be a star in Milwaukee, and I think he's going to be a really good player, and I wish him nothing but the best. He was really upset with the trade. You saw him tweet about it with the emojis and everything after he found out he was getting moved. I thought he was going to be the permanent DH here in Atlanta. His bat was just too important for what this team did down the stretch last year, and I thought d'Arnaud was going to get the opportunity to be the everyday catcher, and they would figure it out, and hopefully Contreras could lock that down after this year. But Murphy gives them more stability. Murphy is the more win-now player because they think they still want to win a World Series, another World Series right now. But I don't know. I think it's a good deal. I think he'll be a good player for the next 3 to 4 years, and the Braves are actually going to have consistency at a catcher spot where most teams around the league do not, which is a positive, especially with the amount of talent in this rotation and in this bullpen. So I've kind of done a 180. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me with this deal probably is a step down from Contreras to Murphy as a bat overall, although mostly what kind of is curious about the trade to me from Atlanta's perspective is, and I understand that guys like Marcell Ozuna, same time, you kind of need Contreras' bat in the lineup a bit, and I think because the upgrade offensively from d'Arnaud to Murphy, it is an upgrade, but at the same time, you are now taking whatever dip on the other end and going from having Contreras be your regular DH to having to play Ozuna there, to having to figure something else out there. I mean, and granted, there's still off season left. There's still time for the Braves to add another bat if they need to. And I understand, too, that, they presumably felt, one, d'Arnaud is done after this coming season. He has a team option for 2024 that will almost certainly now be declined if he even makes it the full year on the roster. I imagine that their inside metrics told them that Contreras was just never going to be defensively good enough to be a full-time catcher, and that he was always going to have to be a kind of DH corner outfield bat. Maybe they just felt like, they're, in a sense, selling high in that regard. Whatever. I can understand it, though, from Atlanta's perspective of, you get a very good defensive catcher in Murphy, who's also one of the better hitters at the position, with top 5 hitter. You get him out of Oakland. I really think that's going to be something, too, the same way you saw with JT Realmuto in Philly, going from a bad offensive environment in Miami to a good one in Philadelphia. I think you're going to see something similar going from a bad offensive environment in Oakland to a good one in Atlanta, or at least a better one. Obviously, I think it's a great move for Milwaukee to get Contreras for essentially nothing. Just to insert themselves in that trade and somehow walk away with a 120 WRC plus bat, who maybe they can, and who knows, maybe they have the secret sauce that can make him a viable full-time catcher. There's no reason he couldn't be. I mean, his brother, who I love too, that they are now in the same division. I also love too, in a slight tangent, just the story about Wilson Contreras being asked, like, when did he kind of decide he wanted to come to St. Louis? Be like, when we were playing against the Cardinals at one point and Albert Pujols homered, and I just kind of started thinking to myself how cool it'd be to be over there. It's like, man, having Cubs fans taken enough, like, just beatings in the last few years to have one of their former franchise guys just go over and be like, yeah, I was, like, daydreaming of joining our most hated rival.
It is Albert Pujols, and
the one the one I don't get, but again do get, is Oakland, where... Look, how is this the best you could do for the best catcher available on the market? Essentially, a back end of the rotation starter, and for as much as Kyle Muller has good stuff, doesn't have very good control. I think that's more. I think that speaks more to Atlanta's farm system than it does, I think, to Muller. A guy in Asturi Ruiz, who they are very clearly higher on than any team or individual in the industry. This is not list coming out this winter that's gonna peg Asturi Ruiz. It's gonna have Asturi Ruiz anywhere on it. He profiles pretty much as Tony Kemp. Tony Kemp's a fine player, but that should not be the defining central package of that deal. And then they add in a couple of relievers who are a little further away. And funny enough, Manny Pena, who actually is going to make more money than Sean Murphy next season. So
Braves legend Manny Pena.
I understand that the A's. Are not really here to compete or contend. They're essentially leave Oakland until they can get a new stadium, presumably in Las Vegas. But it's really depressing, man. This is if you want to grade the trade, I think it's a B+ for the Braves, an A for the Brewers, and a flat F for the A's. Like, it doesn't make them better either in the present or the future. It's just about saving more money down the road and about running out the cheapest possible roster you can, regardless of how good that roster is or how well it's going to perform. That's really depressing, and I know A's fans are kind of used to it at this point, but man, that is a situation where if Rob Manfred cared at all about competitive, about